If we take more time, if we cannot finish all the 8 domains, it is okay. I heard in a many silent way that 4 o'clock is not a good idea. So I'm going to stay with the 3:30, right? Yeah. But what was not really planned out is exactly when Oma was asking the questions about services, really, because I wasn't expecting those are the questions, but they are wonderful. We got a wonderful response from both Annabelle and Deborah. So we really have to switch gear now. I need your help to think not so much of how you practice now. You know, I have no question how you practice. Now I want you to think you as a champion, as a leader of your CSA. That's why we want to put you together now, so you can look at each other and say, we are the champions, we are the leaders. The question is, how do you shift that into looking at practices, into programs, into policy, and maybe even further system design in your CSA. So use your creativity, use your commitment. So let's start with the first thing. Cultural linguistic competence, organizational needs assessment. Mouthful. You have some of those references in your 3-ring binders. And so the definition very quickly. Organizational, cultural, and linguistic competence, don't have to write it down. We will give it to you next time, because that one we really need. Or I can actually give it to you after today. Organizational, cultural, linguistic competence develops over extended period of time. Organizations are at various levels of awareness, knowledge, and skills along of a continuum. Assessing attitudes, practices, structures, and policies of programs and their personnel is necessary. Effective, systematic way to plan for incorporated cultural, linguistic competency within your CSA. Boring, isn't it? Boring. But the first step is really to, how do you assess? Where is your agency is at this time towards, really if you simplify that, is to say that how are we serving our community? Not so much of clients, but think about the community. If you are in Boston, how are you serving that community in Boston? Are you doing very well? Or you know that maybe some population you have not reached out to? This is not only about, I'm just going to use the word client. I really should use the first families and so forth, but I want to shorten it right now. It's that it's also about the workforce. You have a diverse workforce. You know, a diverse workforce to me always brings in a lot of fun, starting with food and into many, many things. So with that said, with that quick definition, I'm going to look at both Anna and Oma. Do we have any example of, you know, have anyone actually done any kind of assessment of any form about certain racial, ethnic, cultural population that you say, hey, that's a population that we need to pay some attention to?
Well, I was going to say we've had some conversation around it, and we are considered, I always say the brown people, but the black specialty agency. So that is what we mostly see coming through the doors. I say brown people because a lot of times, if you're not white, then you're this. And so we have a catchment that I believe comes through. But Edna had made a good point that I often didn't even consider, that we're smack dab in the middle of a huge Cape Verdean population on every street around us, like you see it as you walk to work, and that's not something that we serve really, that we get a lot of referrals for. And so that kind of awareness and trying to think about how would we go about approaching that is discussions that we've had, because I think we are experts at serving who we are used to serving, which is probably the struggle that everybody's having. Who we are used to getting, we can serve them well. But are we really looking at who we're not even targeting or seeing come through the door? And I think that's what this is all about.
But I think we were proactive in making sure we were still hiring within the community for Cape Verde and Field speaking ICCs and family partners, and we're still looking, even though we don't have as many families, you know, that we can definitely handle as far as in the community, but we do continue hiring for the linguistic piece.
I think for Gandhara, historically we our community have focused on addressing the needs of the Hispanic community. So throughout Gandara as an agency as a whole, we've done a lot in regards to gathering more information about what the specific needs and really implementing new programs and new services that fit those needs. Most recently, in the past 3 years, I think with the new CSA, because like Monica was saying, that you guys focus on the brown community, we really are the specialty that really focuses on the Hispanic community. And with that said, I think with our staffing, I believe 90% of our staff are required or do speak both English and Spanish. We are also training our staff to translate all documentations, to really focus on addressing and really getting to this community. We also, with that said, we also have a very diverse staff group. We have individuals that speak English, Spanish, and other languages. We have 2 individuals that speak Russian. We have another individual who speaks more than, I can't tell you how many because there's several in it. But we're really trying to focus on meeting the capacity of everyone in the community. We also have recognized that we've gotten many referrals for families who are Hispanic but only speak English. So how do we balance those cultural needs? Because typically what people think of is you're Hispanic, you speak Spanish, and you don't understand anything in English, and that really is not what we're seeing in our community. So that's some of the things that we've done. If anybody wants to add to it.
Yeah, and the thing at the same time, we're trying to sort of keep the cultural aspect of things, and this is what Director and I have been talking about, sort of in the foreground. So really continue to talk about cultural awareness with our staff and to really understand the community. So it's not just that we're happen to have bilingual, bicultural people, but our staff, but also to talk about what that means to us as individuals and to present that to the community as well, because it's ongoing. You learn constantly all the time. So we have to talk about it. We have to keep it present. We have to keep it real among our staff. So this is something that we're also developing as well. Every time we do, we're going to be doing trainings or discussions to look at the culture aspect of that topic or whatever it's going to be.
Yeah, and I don't know anybody from Canada going to say anything else, because I wanted to kind of jump into, in terms of the needs assessment. I don't know if anybody has done a formal need assessment, of their organization, in terms of the cultural, linguistic, and linguistic competency. Okay. Yeah. You want to talk about it, share some of
Well,
that?
actually, we did that. It was so complicated. And to just do the whole thing and get a plan, we really didn't implement a lot of it. So one of the things that I would suggest is it's really good to go through the inventory and make you aware, but then you have to just pick a few things to begin. I think rather than trying to do this whole big, that one that was in the handouts, it just got put away after that.
Because, again, I'm going back. For me, talking about cultural, linguistic, competency, it's just like, in our culture, a lot of times we kind of stereotype. We have to put, labels in order for us to understand things and to do certain things. But in reality, what we kind of like, I feel like, we've really been practicing, really, it's cultural humility. Because, I'm glad, you shared that, you did that experience. It's very complicated. So it's, actually we have, continuous training. And one of, the training we had, and I don't know if anybody knows Dr. Crawford, from Boston University, EMC. And he was trying to compute, if we have to be cultural competent, like, what was the math? I don't know, how many, different, domains, like thousands and thousands, that you have to multiply by. Take one family. Take one family and think about, the different cultures that can be in that one family and try to kind of compute that. So for me, it's really, like Ed mentioned, it's a continuum, it's a process, I don't think, the conversation in terms of, doing the inventory, looking at the needs, of your community, that mean that, okay, I'm going to go to that exercise, once and that's it. It's supposed to be part of what you do, kind of like, every day. And that exchange of learning, listening, and always knowing that, I don't really know. I always tell people, if you think I'm Haitian and you know Haitian people, be my guest, because you'll be surprised. Because it's really not really that. And that's where, we are, when we are talking about the Cape Verdean population, and even, like in the beginning, struggling with the word black, what that means. We are a specialty serving black families. What in a way, it's kind of like have really no meaning, like serving Latino. It's just, those type of things, we keep, kind of constantly, talking about and evolving. I don't want to talk too much. I want other people to bring the idea.
I just think, I think about a family that was referred to our agency. The father was wheelchair bound. He was legally blind. He still had sight, but he was legally blind. And he would tell you, my glasses are very, very thick. Don't ask me to read this paperwork. Just tell me what it says and where to sign. But I mean, it brought up all sorts of just issues about things we take for granted. We take for granted being able to put our families in the car and drive them wherever. It wasn't as simple for him to put him in a car. I mean, it was, you had to put him in the car, and literally his ICC sometimes had to lift him to help put him in the car. He had to make sure there was room in his car to fold up his wheelchair. So it brought a lot of systems things, because then we had to, I remember my manager had to review policy about, is it okay for my worker to be physically touching this guy? Yes, it's to help him to get him to an appointment, but it took it to a whole different level with policy. And can we touch him? Can we fold up his wheelchair? What if his wheelchair breaks? Is he liable? Are we liable? And that was before we could do the day-to-day work of engagement, talking about what his needs were, talking about what his family needed. And it was him and his